Hello, I'm Curt Whitesell and want to welcome you to the coolest and most informative podcast in the Westfield, Indiana area. What's Up Westfield? What's Up Westfield is a local chat fest to dig deep into politics, development, who's doing what, and anything else we can fit into 45 minutes of fun online. If you have a topic or an interest in being an amazing guest, please reach out to us and we'd love to hear your ideas. My guest today is a lifelong resident and engaged community member that owns and operates Triple L Fit to keep her friends and neighbors healthy. Recently, the Foster and Adoptive Parent announced her campaign to be on the City Council as a registered Democrat and is looking forward to making big moves in her hometown. Please welcome Alexis Lowry to the podcast. Hey, Alexis, thanks for doing the podcast. I appreciate you coming on here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What would you normally be doing on a Wednesday at 12:30?
Oh, your guess is as good as mine.
Okay.
My life was crazy. I'm always doing something, probably walking my dogs.
Okay. What kind of dogs do you have?
I have 2 golden doodles and a Great Pyrenees, and they're
Okay.
spoiled rotten, and
Yeah.
they get a lot of walks because their mom's a health coach.
Yeah. I found golden doodles, they're easy to spoil because they ask for a lot of spoiling. But all right. So I don't know you, and you don't know me.
Don't.
You have been recorded and you announced that you're running for council, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And so I just want to get to know you and give you a chance to tell about yourself and about what your goals are and things like that. And so I appreciate you doing this. So why don't you just start by telling us personally who you are, what you do, and things like that.
Okay. Well, my name's Alexis. I was born and raised in Westfield, so I'm a 40-year resident. When I was born, there was like less than 3,000 residents. So I've been here for all of the massive growth. I have my own business. I'm a health coach.
Okay.
So my background is in fitness and nutrition. I'm married. I married my college sweetheart, Josh Lowry. He's an attorney back like 17 years ago. I'm old. That sounds weird. Like I feel like I'm still 17, so it's weird that I've been married for 17 years. Like I got married as an infant. He's an attorney. He ran for state senate last election.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not completely new to this, but I'm somewhat new to this. So I've been living vicariously.
You're familiar with it.
I'm familiar. Yeah, I'm familiar. So, I'm a mom. I have 4 children right now. We're foster parents, so they're all adopted. So I'll always and forever have at least 4 kids. But sometimes people meet me and they're like, "How many kids do you have?" And I'm like, 6, and then they see me again and I'm like, 4, and they're like, "Whoa, what happened?" So the numbers always fluctuate.
Yeah, you come with explanation though. Like you got to clear things up. Why does it fluctuate so much? So that's funny.
Yeah. Pretty much. So
you have 4 kids right now,
yeah,
all adopted. Well, how old are they right now?
So right now they're 8, 10, 14, and 16.
Okay. Is that a pretty standard crew? Or is it all over the place? Like, do you always have 4 kids typically, and they're about those ages?
So we struggled with fertility for over 10 years. So I did 10 rounds of IVF after doing a lot of other things, and I had 13 miscarriages. So when we decided, well, we're out of money. So the private adoption's kind of off the table here. What else could we do? And we were introduced to foster care. It was a really hard, you have to decide when you go through that, like what age range you want, right? And everybody wants a baby and everybody wants one because, like who's crazy enough to take in more than one child at a time?
Yeah.
So I don't know, after trying for so long, it felt really selfish to now be like, all I wanted was to be a mom. And now, I only want a child that is, this ethnicity and this age and only this. And so we just kind of left it up to God and said a prayer. And we were like, we're open to anything and everything, sibling groups, all ages. And we will only be asked to take kids that we're supposed to have. So we've never said no at all. If you introduced us to somebody, we said yes. And it's worked out. So we've had 12 kids currently. That's how many we've fostered. And we've adopted 4. And so my younger 2 are my oldest. because
Okay.
I adopted them in 2019 and they're biological brother and sister.
Okay.
And then my older two are my youngest because we adopted them on March 1st a year ago. So
Okay.
last March 1st, 2022. And they're biological sisters.
Oh, okay. So
Yep.
will you bring more foster kids in?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
probably. I don't know if
Sweet.
we'll ever stop.
Uh-huh.
We're a little crazy, but you
I
kind of have
like
to be,
that
right?
though. I like that. You know what though? I don't think people understand. Once you have a couple, I mean,
Yeah.
it's to me, it's like the same as
Yeah.
dogs. You know, you just keep piling them in. They're fine.
Mhm. Anything after once you're outnumbered, anything
Mhm.
over 2, it's like
Mhm.
3 is the same as 100.
Yeah.
And honestly, I almost feel like it kinda gets a little easier. I mean, there are certain things that get harder. It's like you have 5 billion doctor's visits for like
Uh-huh.
5,000 children. Um, but a part of it gets easier because they have like built-in playmates. They don't need so much of my
Yeah.
attention because they can give
No,
each
for
other
sure.
attention. So I can
Mhm.
go like make dinner without, doing homework
Yeah.
and walking the dogs and doing everything simultaneously. So
All right. So you have 4 kids. Husband's married. You professionally are what?
professionally, I'm a business owner, small business owner. So I'm a nutrition coach.
What is that? Tell us what you do. What do you do
Uh,
for a job?
So I help people look, feel, and perform better. So I help some people lose weight. I help some
Mhm.
people lower blood pressure, or
Uh,
they're looking at starting cholesterol meds, so they're trying to get their health in check.
mhm.
Others, I have a couple clients that one of my hobbies is bodybuilding and doing
Okay.
competitions. And so I have a few clients I'm prepping to be in a bodybuilding competition. So it's not
Oh, okay.
always weight loss and health.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's purely physique and trying to
Mhm.
like be their, you know, beat what they were in high school. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's
Yeah.
not realistic to weigh what I weigh in high school." And I'm like, "I weigh less than I did in high school. Why isn't it realistic?" Like, yeah, it can be if
Yeah,
you
for
want to.
sure.
Like,
Yep.
so
So
yeah.
men, women,
Yep.
kids? Not really kids?
Not really. I've had one
Mhm.
younger. She's like 18.
Okay.
But she has medical issues. So
Okay.
she's really skinny and she's trying to gain weight. And so she
Okay.
needed like nutrient dense foods to help her
Mhm.
put on weight because she was really small for her size. So and
I would
honestly,
be
it's just
so good at doing that, like carb loads and cheese. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So it's just it's individualized, it's personal. I'm
Okay.
not like you have to do keto and like
Uh-huh.
I don't understand that mindset when somebody's like, this is how you do it and it'll work. And I'm like, you don't even
Mhm.
know the person you're talking to. You
Yeah.
have no idea if that'll work or not. Like nutrition and health is so individualized and
True.
personalized. Like there are some things like, yeah, everybody needs water. Like don't walk around
Uh-huh.
dehydrated.
Yeah.
But you and I don't need the exact same amount of water.
Uh-huh.
We have different lifestyles. We
Totally
have
different.
different
Yep.
energy, what we do every day. Like we're different weights, we're different genders. Like there's a ton that plays into it. So there's not like a one size fits all approach. So it kind of
Well,
annoys me
before
when people
I
yeah.
sign a contract with you out of just guilt, because I need all that, um, I've got to move on because I'm sitting here thinking I'm getting depressed. I'm thinking of
That's
every
another call. That's another
because
call.
I just had 2 mint Oreo cookies and a statin. So I'm good for
Sorry.
a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Westfield. Tell us a
Mm,
little bit about what it was like growing up in Westfield, what the community felt like,
yeah.
and then some of the recognizable. I want to know what it was like growing up here, but then
Mm,
some things that have changed that are not bad, that are just some cool things that have happened growing up here and becoming an adult here.
yeah. So growing up in Westfield, I'm gonna try to get through this without crying. I'm a bit of a
Oh,
crier. My husband's
uh
like, "You're gonna run for office. You gotta stop crying in public."
huh. I'll cry with
Um,
you.
okay, good. Uh, honestly, I had the best childhood. This was the
Uh huh.
best town to grow up in. I know it's a
Was it?
city now, but
Mm-hmm.
yes, it was. It was. It
Why?
was,
Why?
everybody knew everybody.
Uh huh.
It was small enough to do things that I wouldn't dream of doing now, letting my kids do now. Like, I think I
Mm-hmm.
was probably 7 or 8 when Walmart was being built, and
Mm-hmm.
I grew up down the road from City Hall, and I rode my bike to Walmart, like, by myself,
Yeah, no
like,
way.
right? Like, I'm not letting my
Uh-huh.
8-year-old ride her bike to a Walmart,
Uh-huh.
are you insane? But I used to watch
Uh-huh.
it be built, and I remember thinking, "Wow." we have made it now. We have a
We have
Walmart.
a Walmart. Yep.
Like
It was awesome.
it was so cool. Like I remember and then I would I'd ride past Walmart and I'd go down to Galleons and I'd do the rock climbing wall
Uh-huh.
and I don't know. It was just I would go to the donut shop, which I just recently found out that the donut shop has always been called like White House Donuts.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no. It was just the donut shop.
Uh-huh.
It was the only one, so you could say the
Yeah.
donut shop, and you knew where you were going. There wasn't
Uh-huh.
like 50.
But no, it
Uh,
has a real legit name. White House
yeah,
Donuts. Yeah.
and I would go and they'd be like, "Hi, Lexi," and I'm like, "Hi," and I would
Mhm.
purposely I would go to the pop-in actually, and I'd wait for everybody to leave the donut shop,
Uh-huh.
but they still had some donuts left, but not a lot. But then like everybody would be gone, and then I'd run in there and be like, "I only have 50 cents. Like, how many donuts can I get for 50 cents?" And
Uh-huh.
he would just fill up the box. And
Yep.
I would take everything left home so
Uh-huh.
nothing would go to waste to my family. And my mom would
Yep.
be like, "Good job."
Yeah, right. But that's why they were out of donuts every time someone went in there, because you cleaned them out.
That's why I had to become a health coach, apparently.
Uh-huh, right? Yeah, yeah. That's funny.
So I mean, I rode my bike all over Westfield. I say I wasn't really raised by my mom and dad. I was
Uh-huh.
raised by the town of Westfield. It was like
Mhm.
the sun
By the
is up, you are
streets.
awake, get out of the house and don't come
Uh-huh.
home until the street lights come on.
Yeah,
And so my parents wouldn't know where it was all day. Like
yeah.
they didn't
That
worry
doesn't
about
happen
it.
anymore. That doesn't
Nothing's
happen
happening
anymore.
here.
Nope. We know, yeah,
And
right?
so
We know everywhere our kids are now.
yeah,
Mhm.
and back then it was just like you would just call some neighbors and be like, "Oh yeah, I
Mhm.
saw her going down Birch Street.
Yep.
She was at the Spears house about an hour ago." Like if you
Mhm.
needed to know.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, so I grew up at the Huffmans and the Spears and the Skippers
Mhm.
and the Campbells and I learned a lot. I really did. I remember being like, "Wow, Allie's mom is so cool." My mom and dad
Mhm.
would never let me eat in the living room. And so I just learned from a really early age that just because one family does something different than you doesn't make it wrong or right. Like it's different and different
Uh-huh.
people do things differently. And
Yeah.
they were all loved and they were all safe and they were
Mhm.
all happy. So I
Mhm.
don't know. I grew up playing soccer. I was
Okay.
raised on the soccer field.
Okay.
So I played on this was back when there wasn't an all girls team. So I
Okay.
had to, so I started playing rec and then I started trying out to play more competitively
Yeah.
and on the travel teams, but there wasn't a girls. So I
Okay.
tried out for the all boys travel team. And
Uh-huh.
I remember having to like go through the like manual to be like, it does not say anywhere in here that a girl
Mm.
can't play.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so I would try it out and I made the team 10 years in a row. So I grew up on the same
Nice.
all boys travel soccer team for 10 years.
Uh-huh.
I remember being very sad when I got to high school that I had to play on the girls team. Like I was like, no, I want to play on the guys team. Like, so that was hard for me.
Yep.
So I was just like one of the guys growing
Yeah.
up. But
So are a
so I
lot of
grew
those
up,
a
yeah.
lot of those people you mentioned, like a lot of those kids you ran around with, are they still around, do you feel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Fred Catron was my coach. So Adam and Seth
Mhm.
Catron. So you might know them. Adam's a
Yep.
realtor. I think
Yep.
his brother, I think they're in business together too. I think they do
Yeah.
slightly different things, maybe. I'm not
Yep.
sure. But they're still around. And
Mhm.
Chad Huff, his
Mhm.
mom and my dad, I think it was, were like our first soccer coaches when we
Oh,
were
okay.
like 4. Yeah, so I grew
Okay.
up, Chad and I are the
Uh-huh.
same age, so we like kind of
Alright.
grew up on the soccer field together.
I wanna do a podcast with people that just tell stories about Chad Huff. I survived Chad Huff. That
Yeah,
and it would
I
just be like
survived.
yeah. I think we could do an entire series on that, but, um alright, so, what are a couple things that are cool about that have happened other than the Walmart being built, what are some cool things about town going from nobody, little bunch of people,
Yeah,
to now you got 40,000 people? What have you
yeah,
noticed that's
50
cool?
yeah, I think we're over 50,000 now.
Yeah.
Um, honestly, I'm pro growth. I'm
Mhm.
pro change. I just personally how like my own mindset works. I think if you're not growing, you're dying. Like
Yeah.
staying the same is never an option. Like, it's just, that's not how life works, right? Like, you get older, your hair starts falling out, like everything either gets better or declines. So like just staying the same isn't an option because everything around you is growing and moving forward. So if you're staying the same, you're in effect declining, right? So I like the growth. I remember being in high school and I was not a popular kid. Okay. I wasn't. I had friends in like every group, but I didn't have like my own clique group at all. It was like I was like the outsider inserting themselves in everybody else's group because I thought everybody was my friend when really nobody was my friend. And so I remember in high school, especially going through a phase where I just wish I was new. I wish I was the new kid because in my experience, you were automatically popular if you were new. Everybody wanted to know who you were. It was like it was like a fight. It was a contest to be like, who was going to befriend the new person first?
Yeah.
And some of that has changed, I feel like a little bit. It's not as cool to be the new person anymore. And I don't know why or how that shifted, but I'm pro growth. I think that a lot of cool things have happened.
Like, do you like that the high school's big and do you like that because of growth you ended up with Grand Park and Restaurant Row, and have you just enjoyed that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think some things could have been done better, but I think if you're honest, everything could be done better. Anything could be done better. I could be a better health coach. I could be a better mom. Like I could be a
This
better wife.
podcast
Like,
can be done better for sure. So
like if you already think everything's the best, like what's the point? I don't know. I just like there's always room for growth and making things better. So I don't know. I don't know if I have like a perfect example of like why I like it. I just don't think it's bad.
Okay. So a lot of times people, so let's get into it. A lot of times people run for office because they're fed up or they don't like how things are going. It's very rarely is it to get on the wave because things are going great. So what made you want to run for council, the city council?
My husband.
Talked you into it?
It's really that simple.
Wait, he told you to run?
Kind of. No, I'm kidding, kind of. My husband ran for state senate last election, and politics isn't new to me only because my husband, I love him dearly, but I have been sleeping wonderfully for the last 17 years because every night we get in bed, he starts talking about politics. And so I'm like, immediately.
Really funny.
Like it just was never something that like was my focus. It wasn't my like interest, my hobby, right? Because it always seemed so negative and people were always so angry when they were talking about that stuff. And I like avoid negativity like the plague. I'm like, yeah. Where's the opportunity in this obstacle? Like I'm really good at reframing struggles to find how can we turn this into a strength? So typically in my experience, when people are talking about politics, they're complaining. And that's just not how I was raised. In my house growing up, if you care enough to complain about it, then you have to go and do something and fix it or shut up. I mean, that was like, you were not allowed to complain. If you're going to complain about it, go fix it then. If you think you can do it better, step up to the plate. That's how I was raised. So when my husband ran for office, I learned a lot more because I started paying attention because I was going door to door with him. I feel like I just want to spend time with my husband. He's my best friend. So I don't care what he's doing. I find it interesting because I find him interesting. So I was going door to door with him. We took our kids with us. By the way, if anybody's running, take your kids with you. People are much nicer at the door when they see an 8-year-old. Take them with you.
Awesome.
So I just learned a lot directly from the people in this city. I say town. It's always going to be my hometown. So I heard directly from a lot of the people in the city what they were frustrated with. And honestly, a lot of it kind of broke my heart that's their reality, that's how they feel about it. Because it was so not my experience for me growing up here. And so I was talking about it, I don't know, January. Before I filed, I was just kind of we were, having discussion around the table, and I was just talking about some things that came up, and very passionately, as I do. And my husband's like, "Why don't you run for city council?" And I'm like, "I don't even know what that means." like what?
What is
And he's
that?
like,
Yep.
"No." And he's like, "Babe," he was like, when you decide to do something, you go all in. Like, I don't half-ass anything. Like when I decided to become a foster parent, I was taking classes and reading books and talking to people that have been in it. And I keep learning, and I keep doing continuing education stuff, because I want to be the best foster parent possible, because my kids' lives depend on it. So I either am the best at what I do, or I don't do it at all. Like, there's no in between, which is why I went door to door with my husband when I hate politics. Like, if you're going to be a wife, your job is to be the best wife. Like that's just how I do things.
Yeah.
And anyway, I don't remember what I was saying. So anyway, he was just like, you can learn how to be a politician. I can't teach a politician to love Westfield.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me.
Good
I was
point.
like, oh, you're right. Nobody loves
Mhm.
Westfield more than I do. Like, he's like, I knew probably within a week that when we started dating, I knew that if I was going to marry you, we were going to move to Westfield. Like, he was like, it was very obvious from the very beginning, you love Westfield. And there was no other option. And so he's like, you're the perfect person to run for city council. So I was like, okay, sign me up. How do I
All
do
right,
that? I need help.
So you signed up as a Democrat.
I did.
All right. So Westfield is not known for its, first of all, female. I mean, we've had some female counselors. That's not the right way to say it, but haven't had a lot female Democrat counselors, or even politicians. So, why do you think? Why do you think we don't have a lot of that? What struggles do you think you'll have just going into it as a Democratic candidate?
None. I don't. I don't see obstacles. I only see opportunities.
All right.
I really don't. I think if your government should represent the citizens. And we have a very diverse demographic now, much more so than we did when we had 3,000 residents.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
and when I was going, I think the reason why I'm like the first, or I would be the first that wins as a Democrat. I think that's not because we don't have a Democratic base here. I think that's because people are comfortable and they don't like change. They don't like being uncomfortable. I love uncomfort. I love it. Like, one of the very first things I learned in business was to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And every time I put myself in a situation where I allow myself to be uncomfortable, I grow and I learn so much, and my life changes before my eyes, and I'm able to do more good. And I've had a lot of people say to me, why don't you just run as a Republican? You would win if you just ran as a Republican. And I say, well, I'm just going to win as a Democrat instead. Because that's the right thing to do, because I am a Democrat. I was raised Republican. And I think a lot of people around here think that we're still very Republican. And I know firsthand, because I knocked on almost every single door in Westfield when my husband ran for Senate. And I cannot tell you how many, almost every door that was Democrat said this exact same thing. I'm the only Democrat in my neighborhood. We had a string of 16 houses in a row say that exact same thing.
They just didn't know. Nobody's talking about it.
They're all in the closet. They're all in the closet. They don't want anybody to know because they think they're the only ones. They're not. I was genuinely shocked that my husband did not win his race. And it wasn't because we don't have enough Democrats here. It was because they all think they're alone. They think their one vote isn't going to change anything. And so they didn't show up on election day. They didn't go and vote.
So
We kept the statistics.
and you think and that there are plenty of Democrats in this community to support a
Plenty,
Democrat. You don't
plenty.
need one Republican vote. You can win
Yep.
with Democratic votes. Okay.
If they
I
show
don't know
up,
this.
if they show up and vote, I can win. The
Do they
hard
vote
part is,
already?
so some of them do and some of them don't. I know firsthand because I started going door to door already. And I did, like, I started with my neighborhood because it's my neighborhood, right? Like, hey, just so you know, you all know me, I'm running. And I went to 5 houses yesterday. My neighborhood only has 70. And I went in the
Okay.
middle of the day, so most people weren't home. So I went to 5 houses yesterday in my neighborhood that were home, that all told me not only last election that they were voting for my husband, they put a sign in their yard promoting my husband. And we have access to a database that tells you whether or not people voted or not. And 5 of the people that told me to my face, you've got our vote, put a sign in my yard, didn't show up on election day and didn't vote. And that was just our neighborhood alone.
That's hard, isn't it? How do you
So
work with
my
that, you know?
challenge is going to be getting them to understand that they're not alone. Their vote does matter. And if they just show up, you could help get the first Democrat elected. And that's important because when you have a bunch of people that think very similarly, you actually end up getting less done because you're more likely to think, well, you don't have anything for me to learn from because we're on the same side. We agree. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's not a whole lot of agreeing happening. And we have like a one-party system in there now.
We have a Republican male white party.
And they're having a real hard time. And I
Getting along.
personally, I'm sorry, from my perspective on the outside, it seems like they're having a real hard time finding common ground. And I'm just going to say it. I don't even care because this is how I honestly feel. I think they all probably think they're the smartest person in the room. And if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. You're not going to get anything done. Why should you treat somebody with respect and hear them out and really listen to them if you don't think that they're smarter than you?
Yeah, and there is not a lot of respect in those rooms. So do you feel like are there issues that a Democratic voter, are there specific, because we're not talking about abortion and gun laws locally, right? So it's not like the big hitters are there. So are there any issues specifically that you think being a Democrat, you can handle better than our typical council is today?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I know it's ironic, but at the local level, like you said, it's not really, it shouldn't be. I mean, people still vote that way because they're unaware and they don't understand that it doesn't come into play on the local level. So people are like, oh, I'm a Republican, I vote all Republican. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to like go make you have an abortion or whatever. It's not, the local level is not political, right? It's not supposed to be. It shouldn't be. It's like, okay, like my trash wasn't picked up. Like, they're just, those aren't the issues we're looking
They're
at.
called
So
inconveniences here.
yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it shouldn't really matter. I think what is helpful is I love learning and I love growing and seeing where I could do better and be better. And I think we need a lot more of that on the council, regardless of what party you align with. I can get along. 99% of my closest friends and family are Republican, and I respect them and I love them and they respect and love me. And we have a lot more in common than we don't. So it really shouldn't come to play, but it does.
We live in a place that is so Republican. Here's what the conversation is. So and so is running. Yeah, they're a Democrat. And to me, as soon as they say that, I think, well, what really are they different at a local basis? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't even know why it honestly isn't a topic locally, but so there's nothing specific that you feel like because of your democratic values?
I mean, no, I mean, I guess I probably look at things a little differently. So, have you ever heard the phrase that you're like the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with?
No.
Okay,
My
so
dogs. Okay.
explains a lot. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So
Okay.
part of this is a misconception that we're still very Republican because
Uh-huh.
you tend to hang out with like-minded people. So when you're a Republican and you're hanging out with a bunch of other Republicans, the common knowledge or the common thought process is everybody is a Republican because that's who I'm associating with,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they're not getting outside of their comfort zone to
Mm-hmm.
understand that there's Democrats in the room. They're also, because they're around so many like-minded people, they say things, in my experience, they say things in a very aggressive, assertive, matter-of-fact way that makes somebody that's stereotypically a Democrat more likely to keep their mouth shut because they're non-confrontational and they want
Oh, I
everybody to
see.
be happy and they want
Mm-hmm.
everybody to feel safe, even though they don't feel safe right now in this moment. They want you to feel safe. So they keep their opinion to themselves, and everybody else in the room that's like-minded is da 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 da. And the person over here that doesn't feel safe, they assume they agree because they're not confronting them and being like, I don't think so. I don't feel the same way. It's
Yeah.
happened to every room I've ever walked in my entire life. I
Mm-hmm.
just keep my mouth shut because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because I'm a kind person. And I don't want to get into it because they also know it doesn't matter what I say. I'm not going to change their mind. They already know they're right. They're set in their ways. It feels pointless. So I just nod my head and smile and let them assume that I'm also a Republican. And so
So if
this
you're
was my coming out party.
oh, you're coming up, buddy. You're also that's funny. So all right, so there's nothing you think that your democratic values will do better at, but what are some topics that you would like to tackle as a counselor? What are some of the things that you have now that you've been doing your research and I know
Mhm.
you've been paying attention? What are some
Yeah.
what are some things that are going to hit home for you that you want to really work on?
Yeah. First, I want to go back to my democratic values, looking at it
Okay.
differently. Saying it wouldn't help at all isn't necessarily true. Like, for example, there's a particular area in Westfield that is like our only spot of like affordable housing.
Okay.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
so my democratic brain would looks at that and says there's no green space for the children. There's no safe activities anywhere near it for those kids to have a safe outdoor, get your energy out atmosphere. There's no sidewalks going to the closest grocery store, keeping them safe. They're less likely to have cars and resources and people to help them out to get them to and from the grocery store. So it's like, great, we did this thing. We did the right thing and we made one right here and they have no resources to their at their disposal to actually access the things they still need access to. The reason I said we tend to be very like-minded, like we were the sum of the people we spend the most time with. I also think that's an issue because we've lumped them in the corner of Westfield all together around other like-minded people. So of course, statistically, crime follows poor. That's just statistical, okay? And I don't think it's because they're bad people, they're criminals. We haven't given them any resources to help them not have to succumb to things they don't necessarily want to do, but feel like they have to do. So part of that is you need to have a more thoughtful mind. You need to have more mixed housing because if you're the sum of the people you spend your time with, then everybody in, we'll pick on Chatham Hills, is very like-minded in Chatham Hills. And so you kind of live in your little bubble and you don't understand that there's people that are more, that have needs that aren't being met in Westfield because you're in your bubble over here where it's like, well, all the people in my neighborhood can feed their children. That's not a problem in Westfield. And then you have all the people over here in this neighborhood having a hard time feeding their children and they're doing what the other people are doing based on what they feel like they have to do because they don't have any resources. So if we had better economic development that's more mixed and more diverse, you're going to be surrounded by people that aren't your normal inner circle on both ends of the spectrum. So it's going to have people that have a more empathetic approach because they will notice and they will see that there's people around them that aren't as fortunate as they are. And then on the opposite side, you're going to have people that are in a place right now where they need a few more resources, but they're going to see what the opportunity is and what the potential could be. And they can ask these people questions like, how did you get to where you are? Like, how did you do this? So now they're not surrounded by a lot of like-minded people, which would help reduce that statistic of crime. We're all in our bubbles, and we're like, it's us versus them. It doesn't have to be that way. We could learn something from each other. So that was what I was going to say on that side of things.
Okay.
To your next question,
Fair enough.
they're not, what I want isn't that different from what the Republicans are running on, right? Economic development, infrastructure, cooperation and collaboration. Like, everybody says these same buzzwords, but nobody talks about what that means, right? So economic development, that is actually a problem in Westfield. Whether people want to say it is or not, it is. When 90% of your tax base is residential and 10% is commercial, that is a problem. You are preventing people from being able to move here because you can't, there's no affordable housing. You can't, and when I say people, I mean people like my children. I want my kids to go off to college and come back home. And right now, they're not going to be able to afford to come back home unless they come and move into my basement. And I don't want my children moving in my basement. Right? There needs to be good quality jobs here. So we need to diversify that economic development tax base. So we can live, work, and play in Westfield. There's housing, there's that middle ground housing where my kids are educated, they're hard workers, and there's housing that they can afford right now while they're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt from their student loans.
Yeah.
So there needs to be stepping stone houses.
So the economic development, what, as a counselor, what kind of role do you think you can play in helping with that?
I think you just need to be more, you need to go into it more prepared. Right now you have a council that they talk a lot about transparency, right? And they're like, we save it for the council meetings because the city deserves for us to be transparent. I feel like that's a bit of scapegoat. I think you don't want to do the work to find out the answers behind closed doors and then bring it back up in public. And because of that, and maybe they want to and they feel like what they're doing is best. Maybe I'm completely misspeaking. I tend to do that. But there's a middle ground there. So when you get a certain proposal from a developer or the director of public works or whoever it may be, you can ask them questions and like these executive meetings, whatever, and find that common ground, and then still ask them the question again during the city council meeting. So the city and the constituents are privy to the conversation. And now the person that you're asking is prepared to answer your question. Just because you're asking them because you want transparency and it's the person that should know, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to have it all up here. I have questions for my nutrition clients that I don't know off the top of my head. And I'm like, you know what? That's a great question. I am the person that knows where to find the information when I have resources at my disposal to make sure I give them an informed answer. And so right now, when you don't do that and you're trying to do everything out in the open, it doesn't give the person you're asking the question an opportunity to make sure that they get their information right. So they can just answer the question and they can vote in a timely manner. So things are taking longer because they're not asking those questions beforehand and making sure they're getting all the information so they can review it all in a timely manner. And so when they go into City Hall for their council meetings, they can just vote and they know they're not having to ask all these questions right then and there. They already kind of know which way they're going to vote. And maybe it'll change based on some answers, but you should really already know those answers because you've already asked those questions. You're just asking them again for the people. So they know that you've asked the questions, that you've done the research. So it's on public record. So I think it's just, you have to ask when developers come to Westfield and they say, this is what we want. You have to be like, okay, so what is your plan for green space? What is your plan for how are you going? You know what I mean? You have to ask more questions. You can ask for very specific things. Let them be like, oh, okay, let me fix this and go back to the drawing board.
So what kind of commercial development would you like to see here?
I think we need more mixed residential housing. I
And that's
think we
you're calling that's economically mixed. Like we're talking, you don't want to be just upscale neighborhoods and starter neighborhoods. You want stuff. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think we leave a lot of money on the table by having all of these flat, like ranch style buildings, like a fast food restaurant, for example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You could have that like in the same size lot and have like apartments. Not that apartments are going to be
Mm-hmm.
directly over a fast food restaurant, but
Mm-hmm.
there's all this tax base vertically that Westfield doesn't seem to utilize.
No.
That
But
could
we have the
really,
ladder. We have the ladder truck to put the fire out on them. But no, we don't
yeah.
have any. We have no density or vertical development. Correct.
Yes, we need more we need more density.
Density. Yep.
And I think that is what the mayor said at some point, that the council had like a no growth attitude. And I think that's part of it. I don't think they think they're no growth. I think they're trying to keep that old town Westfield vibe alive by keeping the architectural similar to the way it was in the 1950s. And the problem with that is here's a good example. I'm a foster mom. My family is growing, just like the city of Westfield is growing. If my husband and I stayed in the little ranch style 3-bedroom house when we got married and started adopting and growing our family, we would be uncomfortable. We would feel like our children would feel like they don't have the resources they need to succeed. Okay. They would feel like I'm stuck and I don't have any privacy, and we start stepping on each other's toes. Just because we move into a bigger house doesn't mean the heart of our family has changed at all. Because our family has grown, we have to change the architecture of that house that we are living in to fit our growing family. So everybody feels like they belong. Everybody feels that they're cared about and that they belong here. And that doesn't have to change that hometown, loving, accepting feel just because we're getting bigger. Is the dynamic going to change a little bit? Sure. You have more people now, but I think you can do both. I think you can keep that small town feel while also changing some things externally that's going to promote that hometown feel. When everybody feels like you're actually taking their opinion and their comfort and their safety into consideration, they're automatically going to get that feeling of this person actually cares about me. They care about my ability to feed my children and that my kids have safe places to go do activities and get their energy out. And you can have both. And so I think it's just like a lack of education in this specific area. People they're not asking those questions. How can we be doing better? They're just trying to do what they've always done because it's worked in the past, but that doesn't mean that that's working now.
Yeah. So when you say you'd like more commercial development also, I'm going to assume, well, you said we need corporate tax base. You said that. Do you feel like Westfield needs to be more competitive with its neighboring communities to attract those businesses, or do you feel like that's okay?
Yes. I mean, for some reason, there's this like misconception that people are going to move to Westfield because they want to work and play in Carmel. Right? I don't necessarily think that's true. I think people are moving here and they have to go work and play in Carmel because they don't have those things here.
It's not here yet.
And by bringing those things here, that's going to reduce the tax burden on the residents. That's going to make, you know what I mean? Like anyway, we're going in and we're spending our money in a neighboring city. Carmel loves us, I'm sure.
Oh, they love us. Yeah, they should.
Like we have this, and this has been here since I was a child. Westfield is like, we're not Carmel. We're better than Carmel. And so because of that, they don't want to learn anything from Carmel. We have a lot to learn from our neighboring, thriving communities. We're not Carmel and we're not Noblesville. And I also think we are better. But that's my heart talking. Financially and infrastructurally, if that is a word.
I think it is now.
I just made it a word. We're not better, but we could be better. We could be doing better. And we could learn from people, from other people.
So 2 of our things, by the way, this has been fun. You have a lot of energy and you have no problem answering a question. I like that. So awesome. But I have 2 questions that I ask everybody, and I would like your opinion on them. But coming from an economic development topic, what are your thoughts on Grand Park and our downtown from so Grand Park, what are your thoughts on it? What do you want to do with it? And then our downtown, where do you see it going, and how would you like it to progress?
Yeah, great questions. So I personally, I loved that Grand Park came here. I said earlier, I grew up on the soccer field. I love that my kids don't have to break their ankles playing soccer the way I did out at Habig. Because it's not full of potholes.
Yeah, it's nice.
Because they take good care of the grounds. But to that point, I don't want to offend anybody because I don't know who's managing.
Oh, don't worry. Everybody's offended already. Everybody's got thin skin. We're all sensitive. So you just let it go.
I have really thick skin. So if you're watching this, if you're one of the 2 people that watches this podcast,
hey,
please.
I get to say that. You can't say that.
Please, I am open to learning and growing. So please come inform me if I am wrong. But I think we should keep it. I think selling it at this point would be a huge waste of taxpayer dollars. But I think it might be more of a management problem on why it's not more profitable. Because from my perspective, again, on the outside and not knowing who's managing it or how it's being managed now, my outside perspective is this. I coach there. I've coached there every season since it opened. And so I am the number one, I'm the very first person that people complain to when they have complaints. So the things that I hear are obviously traffic, getting in and out. Like you sit there forever. Like you have to leave an hour before your son's game when it's 5 minutes away because you don't know how long you're going to get stuck in the traffic, right? And then when you're there, and there's lots of things. One, you'll get notices saying, hey, soccer's canceled today. And I have 4 kids playing soccer. And I'm like, they all have practice today. Which child's practice was canceled? And that's coming directly like from the coach or the commissioner. But now I have to remember who the commissioner is for that sport. Because at the time I had 5 kids in 4 different sports at different ages with different commissioners. And I'm like, which one's canceled? So it's bad communication. And so then anyway, and then when I'm not the coach, you're missing practices and they're canceled. If there's rain in the forecast, they're so concerned with their grounds getting messed up that they cancel all practices. And there's no refund. And so people get frustrated when you pay X amount of dollars for 8 games, their child ends up playing 3. And you don't get any money back. I've had multiple people tell me, I'm done playing at WYSI if it stays at Grand Park. I'm just going to put my kids in off the wall at Carmel. Again, so I don't know who's managing that, but like I also, for example, I also coach at Carmel. As the coach there, I am not in charge of all the stuff I'm in charge of coaching at Westfield. So I don't have to communicate with any of the kids' parents. I don't have to tell them when any of the games or practices are, or what fields they are, or when things are canceled. It all comes from the top down, and everybody's getting those messages. All I have to do is show up. So they don't have a problem.
Are you saying you would like Grand Park to be privately managed?
don't know if it needs to be privately managed. I need more information. I
Mhm.
don't know the answer to that question yet.
Okay.
But I think it could be better managed. I don't know how to do that yet. I
Well,
need more information.
a city is never going to be the best manager of a project like that. There's no
Right.
way. They can own it, but they're never going to
Yeah.
be the best manager. It's just not
Yeah.
their wheelhouse. So
Right.
I
So if
think you
they're
were
managing
saying,
it,
yeah,
yes. Yeah.
or
So
give
if
more
they're currently
control to those
managing it,
companies.
I don't think you sell it just because you can't manage it.
Hmm.
Like I've worked in many restaurants. The manager is usually not the owner,
Hmm.
right? But the owner
Yeah,
doesn't know how to manage the restaurant. They
yeah.
hire a manager that knows how to manage a restaurant. So
Hmm.
I don't think you have to sell it off. I think it can still be
Hmm.
owned by the city and managed by a group of people that know how to
Hmm.
manage a big park like that.
Is that what you would prefer? It stay owned by the city and controlled, but better, rented to somebody or give the management to somebody?
Right now, today,
Hmm.
yes.
Okay. And I know you don't have all the information, but from where you're sitting, that's
From
where
where
you
I'm
feel.
sitting right now
Yeah.
today, yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
All
and
right.
then, yeah,
Grand
Grand
Junction or
Junction.
downtown Westfield, which includes our Grand Junction Plaza. Where do you see that going? What would you like to
Yeah.
see?
Um, so I love Westfield. I love downtown Westfield, but
You're getting ready to say something real offensive, I can tell.
that's my life. I just, you just,
Oh, that's so
what you
funny.
see is what you get with me,
Uh-huh.
like it or not.
All right, so
Um,
you love Westfield.
I love Westfield and I loved growing up in Westfield but I
Uh-huh.
feel like there was more for me to do
Uh,
in 1990 than
uh-huh.
there is today.
I think you're
Um,
probably really right.
because I mean there's about the same amount of stuff to
Uh-huh.
do. And we have over 50,000 people
Uh-huh.
now.
Weird, isn't it?
So like statistically speaking, it's supposed to be like for every 1,000 residents, you're supposed to have like nine or 9,000 something square feet of like greenery. And we're like, including Grand Park, we're at less than 5. So
Oh,
we're like less
okay.
than half of like what the
Yeah.
national average should be. And that's
Yeah.
including Grand Park, which isn't open to the public to just go do whatever they
Yeah.
want. So you really shouldn't even include Grand Park.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the plaza, what they've done down there with all that green space. I think it looks really pretty. I don't necessarily think it was a good use of taxpayer dollars. I think there was probably other things we could have done for a lot less money. I think
Uh-huh.
we spent a lot of money on it. I don't
Uh-huh.
not being privy to those conversations and those
Uh-huh.
discussions when those things were taking place. I don't know if that was the best use of funds,
Mm-hmm.
but I like that it's there. So it's kind of a complicated question. In my mind, when I close my eyes, I have a very clear picture of what a downtown Westfield should look like.
Do
And I
you?
don't know if the current group as a whole has that same vision. I know they don't have the
Uh-huh.
same vision that's in my head, obviously.
Yeah.
But everyone keeps saying, we have a vision, we have a vision. But I think when they say that, I think they all have their own individual visions
Yeah.
and that they're
Yeah.
not on common ground. And so this is what you get when that happens.
Yeah.
So I think I like the quaintness of like a gazebo and greenery. And I
Uh-huh.
also like the density of apartments over small family owned businesses underneath.
Uh-huh.
And I
Yeah.
think you can do a little bit of both. I think you need to have like separate sections, like this area over here is going to be greenery and you're riding bikes around, and this
Mm-hmm.
area over here is going to have some high rises, and maybe you
Mm-hmm.
gradually move into that. And I don't know, I have like this like naive picture of
Well, I don't think it's
like,
naive. I think a city, those things are very capable. If first of all, it's got to be sold right, and
yeah,
first of all, there's got to be someone that can figure it out, that it's not way over their pay grade. So
yeah,
I don't think that's crazy. That's what I think a lot of us see down there. Some people though really honestly want every house just to be along Jersey Street just to be turned into a business, and then that's good.
mhm,
And everything's just how it is. So
yeah,
so I'm glad to hear that you are excited, or or hopeful for some growth and density down there because we need it.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful because again, I think we're going through some obstacles right now, but that's not a bad thing. Obstacles in my mind are a huge, huge opportunity. That means we have a lot of progress potential,
Yeah.
and that excites me. I have a very I'll enlighten you a little bit on how my brain works, and maybe this is corny, but I'm a little corny. This is what you get with me. When I picture somebody moving to my city, I literally picture me like greeting them on their doorstep with like a welcome basket and being like, welcome to Westfield. Like, this is where you get the best produce, and the best park for you to get to safely would be down this sidewalk. And I feel like if you've moved to Westfield in the last 15 years, you probably, you maybe that wasn't your experience. Maybe you weren't welcomed with open arms and felt like you belong here. And so you don't reach out and you don't know of all the opportunities to kind of get involved because you're not getting that small town vibe anymore. But you kind of are with like the lack of resources. So it's like it's a big city with like nothing to do. So
It's true though.
it's just like we're like in this weird limbo right now. And there's a disconnect between where we are and where we want to go. And some people think that you just need to get people with a progressive mindset in there to make all these decisions. And even though I think I can be one of those people, I also think that it's not all on me to make those decisions. I think it's very important to go door to door and talk to people and ask them what they care about and what they want and what their frustrations are and what they would like to see. And no, I'm not going to be able to give every 50,000 person, right? I'm not going to give all 50,000 people exactly what they want. But in doing that, you're going to hear themes. You're going to hear the most common thing I heard was, and that is something you can act on when you just think you know what's best without being out in the community, without being open and going to events and meeting the people. You don't really know what they want. So how are you supposed to, this is a public service position. How are you supposed to help people and keep them safe and give them things that they're wanting and the things they want to see if you're not putting yourself out there and finding out what it is that they want from their city?
Yeah. No, it's very true. I think people get caught up in their own little bubble and their circle that gives them praise and yeses. And so I think that's good. You know, one of my issues with downtown was we were and since my wife owns a restaurant down there and I'd done a bunch of work down there, I was always surprised how little conversation or communication there was between the counselor, especially that district, but the council, the admin, making decisions for those people down there and those businesses that were really the first investors in downtown. And so I was always surprised that there was very bad communication. So I think it is important to start listening and ask questions and things like that and get engaged. All right. So you're going to be an exciting candidate, I can tell. You win. Would you be the first Democratic woman or Democrat?
I'll be the first Democrat.
Whew, that's
and
heavy.
The only woman currently, because I'm the only woman running. So I'd be the only Democrat and the only woman.
Man, unbelievable. Well,
and we need that perspective up there.
I think there have been some closet Democrats on that council already. So they're the first one that's out, and I appreciate that. So, but how can people follow you?
Yeah, I am on Twitter. My Facebook is Alexis for Westfield. Okay. My Twitter is Alexis for WF.
Okay.
My website is alexisforwestfield.com.
Okay.
So I'm also on Instagram.
And they can sign up for things. They can follow you, and you can
sign up to volunteer.
Okay.
You can donate to my campaign.
Nice. I like that. You might be surprised being the one person in a party. You might be surprised how much support there is, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So
well, awesome. Thank you very much for doing the podcast. Good luck, and it'll be fun to follow along, and appreciate it.
thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So I'm here drinking whiskey at a champagne town. Are you trying